Okay then, this is video 3 where I'm now going to put the IRD unit, the reconditioned IRD unit, back into the motor. Just to show you, this is, you can get these ready set up for 4-wheel drive, but I actually just asked for a 2-wheel drive conversion and they've already got the blanking plate fitted to it. So as you can see, it's got all the oil seals in place, all brand new oil seals. It's all been sandblasted. It's got probably a new bearing in there and a new oil seal around that side for the drive shaft to go in. So that's the unit. Now, as a matter of precaution, while I was under the car, I did notice that the belts were frayed, so I've got 2 drive belts there to replace, so that's going to be done as well. I may or may not show that on this video. And I've also got a new bracket for the clutch slave cylinder, because I actually had a replacement slave cylinder and master cylinder fitted. They all come in one unit, as you probably know, and for the sake of an extra £10 I did buy the bracket, because they are known to probably bend a little bit, and so I just took the precaution of buying an extra bracket anyway. So I will possibly fit that, but may not show that in this video. I mentioned to you before that when I took my IRD unit out, I mentioned that these were the 2 top bolts, and the 2 underneath, which you can't see, that fix it to the gearbox mounting plate, the 2 bolts underneath, one of them was actually missing and one was hand tight. Well, I actually sourced them parts. This was the bolt for underneath, which I bought brand new. I also had one of these 5 plate bolts missing that go around the outside, so again I replaced, I've got a brand new one of them. And this was also the top bolt for that same bracket on the other side, which was actually not a very good bolt in there. I think it was the head was, someone had replaced it with a temporary bolt or something like that, so I bought a new one. Now, I was looking on eBay for these bolts, but obviously you can't find them, so I actually contacted Rimmer Brothers and got on the phone to them, and they just checked their microfiche once I give them the part number, the chassis number of the vehicle, and I think they come, that was probably about a couple of pounds. That was £1 something, and that was about £2 something, I think. So for things like bolts, they didn't have them in stock, but they came within 3 days. They ordered them and delivered to me within 3 days. So anything like sundry parts like bolts or whatever, do give Rimmer Brothers a try if you're into your Land Rovers or any probably British Leyland vehicle, I suppose. I'm not too sure what they do now. And as you can probably see, these bolts here have got some sort of thread lock applied to them as well. So this bottom one hasn't got any applied to it, or the bottom bolt, but I'm not going to actually put any on. I'm just going to tighten that as possibly tight as I can get it. And I've also got a selection of oil here. For the IRD unit, I've gone for an Hypoid 80/90 gear oil. Now the IRD unit takes, I think in the manual it shows 1.1 litres, so I've bought 2 litres of it here. And for the actual gearbox, which was drained out, I've gone for the Carlube MTF 94 oil. Now again, you may or may not use this, or you may, it does specify Texaco oil in the Haynes manual, but when you drain it, it says you refill with 2 litres, and if it's filling a gearbox from dry, it's 2.2 litres. Well, I've basically bought 2 litres there because I did drain the gearbox oil out, so I'm looking at possibly using that whole 2 litres on that. So rather than buy a 5 litre container, because it's quite dear, this oil, but if you buy the Carlube brand MTF 94, which I think has been recommended by someone on one of the forums if I remember rightly, I've just opted to go with that as a cheaper option, and I'll see how that goes basically. So all I've got to do now is to get outside and now start to install the IRD unit. Right, well, before I actually install this, what I'm actually going to do is to just crack the filler cap there, in case it's done up very, very tight. As I say, I haven't done this up. Whoever's refurbished the IRD unit has done it up. So I'm just going to crack this now, just to make sure that it's hand loose, and also check that the fill plug is done up tight. So I'm going to do that now. Okay. As you can see now, I've left that hand tight, so that'll be easy for me to undo when I actually go to fill up the IRD unit with oil. Right, so I'm just sitting under the front of the car now, and I'm just going to stick this cable up to Gary at the top. Do you get that? Yep. Right, so basically all I've done now is tied a length of old washing line around the IRD unit. It's quite a heavy unit, as you probably know, and Gary's going to try and lift while I lift up from underneath, and we're going to try and get it in this gap. So we're not going to say it's going to be easy, but you're watching this as it happens now. Right, okay, Gal? Do you want to try and just let me get underneath it? I'm going to get in position. Right, okay, lift. Lift the back up. Hold it there for a minute. Hold it there for a minute. Just have a rest.
Yep.
Okay, when you're ready, stay there. I don't quite know the angle we need to be coming in at like that, maybe. What's stopping it? Right, here we go. Keep going. Hold on, bear with me. It's just these guys. Let's have a rest.
Yep.
Tell me when you're okay.
I'm alright, ready to go when you are.
Right, I've just got this pipe to get past this exhaust.
Right.
Then it's in. Right, lift.
That's it.
I need a rest. Does it need spinning round at all?
Well, I'm just going to have to push towards the back of the car to get it past the hose.
What, you are?
Yeah, the top of this.
Okay, go on in.
That's it, yeah.
Wiggle. Okay.
Yeah.
Rest. Just have a rest. Right. That's in real time, you've just seen that. So far we've actually managed to squeeze it in place now. Although it's not in position, that's the first phase of the operation done. Now, okay, Gary's still above and I'm still below. Just having a bit of a breather. I would imagine doing this on your own is nigh on impossible, because I'm relying a lot on the engine not being fixed by that back mount, so the engine moves backwards and forwards a little bit to give you access with the exhaust still on. Obviously it'll be a lot easier with the exhaust off, but as you know, we're doing it with the exhaust on. Right, so we're going to try and swing it round now, yeah?
Yep.
Now I've got to be careful because I don't want to catch my hands. Okay, stay there for a minute. I'm going to try and guide that through the hole.
Yep.
Right, into the gearbox housing. Okay.
Yep.
Right, stay where you are for a minute. Just have a rest. Or should I say, I'll need a rest. Just to mention what I did do as well, which you didn't see on camera. I smeared that O-ring seal with a bit of oil. The one that goes into the gearbox, just to aid it going in, basically, so... Right, so... Okay, again, I'm going to take the weight of it. You might have to just give it a jiggle. Now stop for a minute, rest. Alright, I'm going to try and lift in again. Alright, that's it. There she goes. Alright, that's it, it's in. Right, the splines have just gone into the gearbox, and I can see underneath that the rear mounting bracket is flush with our two bottom mounts on the gearbox. So all I've got to do now basically is put the bolts in by hand, not tighten anything up yet. I'm just going to leave them all hand tight for the moment until we've got all the 4 bolts in, top and bottom of the gearbox side of the IRD unit, and also the bracketry on the other side of the IRD unit actually all in, and I won't tighten them all up until they're all actually in place. So I'm going to do that now. Right, so from underneath I'm going to put back in the bottom IRD bracket bolts that bolt the IRD unit to the gearbox, so I'm just got to line it up. Again, you can get to these bolts underneath, so that's what I'm doing up now. Right, so from the top end now, what we're doing now is just replacing the 2 large 15mm headed bolts that bolt the IRD unit to the gearbox bracket. Again, a little bit awkward, but you're just winding them in by hand at the moment, aren't you?
Yep.
Okay. So again, we're not going to tighten these up. All we're doing is just putting them in position because we've got the front brackets to go on. So we're not even going to nip them up. We're just going to put them in so that they're at least definitely located. As I say, technically speaking, the hardest part of the job now, which is lifting in that IRD unit, is actually done. And it really is a two-handed job, especially if you leave the exhaust downpipe in place. Okay, so that's just over hand tight. And the back one's a little bit more awkward. Have you actually got that one in yet?
That was the back one I done.
That was the back one, so that is...
The front one went straight in by hand.
The front one went straight in by hand. But if you remember, on these, they are very, very hard to undo, and that's where I use that lever technique to actually do them up. So we might have to use that same technique for when we actually nip up, finally, the bolts to get the leverage on it. If you had an impact driver from either underneath or for doing the bottom ones or in the top, I'm sure it would be just a buzz doing it like that with an impact driver, but we haven't got an impact driver, so these are the sort of things you have to do to get over the problem of getting the right tightness on these bolts. So that's done now, yeah?
Yep, and tight.
Right, here's the bracket now which we're going to replace. It's the IRD unit that bolts the IRD unit to the actual engine. As you can see, they're the new bolts that I've got installed, which are actually missing. So we're just going to install this bracket now. Right, so I'm now going to just try and put this IRD bracket back in position and get the bolts in.
I think that's
it, isn't it?
That's it.
Right, that's in place now, right?
Yep.
Can you get to any of the top bolts there?
Probably do 2 top ones.
Right, so if I give you 2 bolts, that's the 2 top ones, so where's your hand? Right, you're going to put the 2 top bolts in then. I'm going to put the bolts underneath in. Right. What probably would have been a good idea would be to clean the threads on all these bolts before you put them back in. So that's a lesson learnt for whoever else is going to be doing this video, watching this video. There's one in the bottom. Again, I'm not doing these up tight, I'm just doing them up hand tight. That's the 2 bottom ones in now, hand tight. But hold the IRD bracket to the bottom of the gearbox.
I'm struggling to turn that one. Can you do that one?
What one's that?
It's just in on the end, this one.
Hold on.
The very front one.
Have I got my hand on it?
No, that's a full finger. Back here. That's it. There.
Yep, got it.
The other one's a bit tight, it's half out.
Alright, as I say, that's why it probably pays to clean the bolt heads, the threads rather, before you install it. Right, that one's 3/4 in now. I've got obviously a couple down here somewhere. Right. I've got one to go in there. I'm doing this one from under the car, obviously. That one's just started. Again, the reason why you leave them loose is because sometimes you need to move the IRD unit just to make life easier tightening the threads up. So that one's 3/4 in, and there's one right at the very top of the IRD unit which has this long bolt. So can you see right at the very top of the bracket, Gal? It's a long bolt going into the engine that way, yeah?
Yeah.
So you try that one.
Just wriggle the box.
Right, bear with me. Is that doing anything?
Started, I think. It's gone tight now.
Right, well you might have to get the spanner on that. It's easy to get not a spanner or a wrench on that.
Yeah. It's just down there behind your ankle. Cross it through.
Right, I don't know if that's got the right socket on it or not. Got it?
Yeah.
And I'll carry on putting the last of the bolts in the front of the IRD unit while you're...
No, that's too big.
It's too big a socket.
Yeah, what's that?
Probably be 13mm. One thing to remember, folks, is that when you're laying under a car, always have some form of safety goggles on, because you'll be amazed how much crap can drop off of an engine or whatever just by moving stuff about. So always have a pair of safety goggles on. when looking up at the engine from underneath. All my bolts are basically in now around the IRD unit, as you can see. There's 3 along the bottom and there's 2 on the top. There's one that bolts in right at the very top of the IRD bracket, and there's one that bolts in, and there's one that bolts in just underneath it. So that's what we're actually doing up at the moment. Well, as you can see, that's the top bolt. Where is it, Gal?
Yeah.
That one there, which was that very long bolt, which Gary's just done up. So I think there's one more bolt in here somewhere. I've just got to check. We've got the 5 around the front of the bracket in. There's that one at the very top. There's 2 underneath there, which I've done, and I think there's one more. I'm just gonna have a check. Right, I'm right underneath the car now. I'm laying under the car. As you can see now, there was another bolt missing out of that IRD bracket. There's the 2 bolts from underneath of the front of the IRD bracket, bolted to the actual sump area. And if you just look up, where is it? Up there, below the 5th, one of the 3 bolts underneath, that's the other bolt which I'm now got to get in. And I've got to do this one up a bit first. It's one of the new bolts I've put in, so I've got to do that in before I can actually physically get that bolt in and tighten it up by hand. And once that bolt's in, then we just go around and nip everything up. Right, so we've done all the brackets up and the gearbox bolts up hand tight. We're going to tighten them up in a second, but we're just going to put the top breather hose on the IRD unit, so that's what Gary's doing now, as you can see. Go on it. Okay,
That's it.
there you go, that's that breather back on the IRD unit. Right, now, somehow, we've got to try and tighten up this IRD unit using that same technique but in reverse. So, again, it's a one-click operation using this technique.
Would it be if you put a longer extension on?
Oh, this is fine.
Is that right?
Yeah, working fine. As a matter of fact, doing them up is a lot easier, or definitely on that back one, than I'm doing them. So that's the first one done, the back one. Get onto the front one now. Half the trouble is leaning into it and trying to get your hand tight first with the ratchet. I've just pulled it up a bit now, as you know. These are probably the most awkwardest bolts, I would say. And for me to gain access to this, bearing in mind the car's jacked up in the air, what I'm doing is standing on a small pair of steps. I've got a cushion over the front of the wing to stop the wing getting damaged, and I'm leaning right into the bonnet area. Go on there. Again, it's a one-click operation. Doing it up, but you can actually get a good purchase using this method. That's it. That's the 2 top ones done up. Right, we're on the bottom IRD bolt now, the one towards the subframe, and I've got an extension 15mm socket with a small extension on, using that same tightening technique, as you can see. Just make sure it's one click at a time, and just make sure it's done up nice and tight. Okay, IRD bracket's fully done up now. All I'm going to do now is replace this tie bar bracket and refit the tie bar to the bracket, so that's what we're going to try and do now. Again, just try manoeuvring that tie bar bracket in place. Might have to tip the engine forward a bit with this, because the holes aren't quite lining up. So if I just rock the engine, there we go. There's the first big bolt in, and now hopefully the two other bolts should just fall into place with a bit of persuasion. The second one in, and the final one. That's the final one in, and now we've got the long bolt that actually fits through the tie bar. Now I might have to wiggle the engine about a bit here to drop it. Pete, is there a screwdriver in the car? Big screwdriver in the footwell. Yeah, that'll do. So just to get this final bolt in, I'm just sticking the screwdriver in and lever in to try and get that bolt in the hole, which I've just done there now. And the screwdriver enables me to rock the engine backwards and forwards to get the thread started. I'm now going to take a socket and tighten them up. So you've basically seen most of this done in real time. The only thing I haven't bored you with is tightening up and installing some of the bolts, which you've seen us tighten up. But as you can see, this is real time now doing up these bolts. It's just a bit boring if you watch this sort of thing. This is a long bolt that bolts into the base of the engine. I would imagine though, with the amount of bolts that you've got in these two bracket systems on the front of the IRD unit, I would imagine it's quite a bit of overkill, to be honest with you. There's like 10 or so bolts just holding a couple of brackets on. Must be a reason for it, but I don't know what it is. And the last one, I suppose you could thread lock these, but I haven't done in this situation. I'm just going to get a bit of extra purchase with my old trusted technique, like that. Like that. Like that. And finally, like that. There you go, one tie bar and bracket reinstalled onto the engine. Right, I'm now going to try and install the drive shaft. I'm going to start off by cutting my first front hanging bit of cord I tied onto it, and the front of the drive shaft is now left hanging. Now again, I'm going to need to cut the rear cord here. I'm going to ask Gary, come in and just take the weight of that for a minute. Got your gloves on? Right, so basically I've got to manoeuvre that into the hole, which I'm trying to do now. Trying to keep it going in square. Again, I don't know whether I've got to turn it here at all. Again, this may or may not be a two-handed job yet, I'm not too sure. Right, again, we've got two of us on this job this time. One wiggling the hub, and myself underneath trying to guide the drive unit, the drive shaft, into its actual location. So Gary's just taking the weight at the back of the drive shaft, and I'm going to try and wiggle. Again, the splines have got to be lined up. Just withdraw it back to you for a minute. Take it back to you. Right, he's just pulled it out. And just try turning on the hub. Okay, now back in the hole. Again, never done this before, so it's all new to me. Whether I'm doing it right or wrong, I'm not too sure. Hold on, let's have a rest. Try spinning the disc a little bit, yeah? Turning the disc. That's it, hold it there. Keep going. Try it again. And again. Hold it there. That's it, it's gone in.
Got it.
There you go. Bit of perseverance. She's gone in, the drive shaft's gone in. Didn't take too long. Basically it was a bit of wiggling and a bit of pushing that at the same time. So she's just gone in. So all we're going to do now, hold it there, go. Right, so all we're going to do now is to replace them top bolts, just to make sure that the unit doesn't fall out again. There's one. Okay, that's both backs in. Both bolts back in. We're just going to tighten them up now, and then we'll go on to the next stage. Well, as a matter of that course, what I said to you, we was going to change these belts on here. So while we're under here, we're just going to change the. This is the alternator belt we're changing at the moment. Right, we're now going to replace the heating pipes, or the hot water pipes, on the top of the IRD unit. That's it. Don't put it right at the very end. That's it. Just over that bevel. That's the first one on. And these pipes are two different diameters, by the way. One's bigger and one's smaller. That's the smallest one that's gone on first.
That's it.
Again, making sure the hoses are pushed right the way home before you actually tighten the clip up. Yeah, be careful you don't
Over tight.
strip it. How's that feel by the hand?
Solid.
Yeah?
Yeah. I don't think that's going to come off.
Okay. There you go, that's the two top hoses done up. Right, it does say you should fill this up when the vehicle's on the floor level, but the manual says it takes 1.1 litres, so we're just going to empty a 1 litre bottle in first of all, which is what we're doing at the moment, via the filler hole on the back end of the IRD unit. These are litre bottles we're putting in, by the way, and this is the Hyperloid gear oil 80/90, so that's what we're doing right now. Right, so basically with the car jacked up the way we've got it jacked up, we were only able to get 950 millilitres in because it was started coming out of the fill plug, so we've got to wait till we've got the car on level ground before we can actually add the final 150 millilitres. So what we're going to do now is do the gearbox oil. Right, I tried getting it through here, I couldn't do it, so basically Gary's going to attempt it from the top of the car through the bonnet area. I'm going to stay down here and try and guide it in, but he reckons there's enough room to manoeuvre a bottle.
Right, where's the hole?
Right, here's where my finger is. Keep going. Oh God, try. Hold on, is it in?
Got that.
Right, okay, yep. Straighten the bottle up. Turn it up your way.
That's it.
This is turned into a two-handed job, believe it or not. Is it in? No, it's not in. So what's in now? It's in now.
You got it? Tried to whip it back there.
Quick, quick, you got hold of it?
Yeah, okay.
Right, okay. Stay there for a minute. Stay there, I'm going to wipe my hands. Stay there. We've made a bit of a mess of this one, ladies. Pete, can I have that roll, please?
Yeah.
We've made a bit of a mess of this one, ladies and gentlemen. Let me just wipe my arm, 'cause it's all running up my arm. Can't move it. Right, we've got it in the hole now, as you can see. I don't know how much of it I've got up my arm, but there we go. Let's just wipe that. Keep it there. Keep it where you are. I'm just wiping the mess we've made. Not as easy as it looks, this one. The simplest things are normally the hardest things, but we're getting it in there now. It's going in there, as you can probably see. I'll try and wipe around that. As I say, Gary's approached this from the engine bay. As they were just try and ease the bottle back up to you a little bit because it's creased and it's not probably going in all that well. That's it, stay where you are. Are you squeezing the bottle?
Yeah.
Is it going in?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, so we are basically getting it in there now anyway, so finally that seems to be the way to do it. Definitely not from underneath. Not unless I suppose you've got a long hose attached to your bottle, and you could probably do it that way, I suppose. So we're just going to carry on. You don't want to watch us doing this. We're going to just carry on filling this up. And this is 2 litres, so it's basically 2 bottles. Whether or not we can get it all in while the car's jacked up like this, I'm not too sure. We might have to finish off once the car is on the ground, so that's what we're going to do now. Right, we've got 1 bottle in now. Gary's going to feed the bottle down now, and I'll try and guide the spout into the hole this time properly.
I've folded it over.
Right, he's folded the end of the bottle over the long plasticky bit that comes out of the bottle.
Get the end of it. Folded. You got it?
Right, I've got the end of the bottle, but hold on, I'm going to try and wiggle it into the hole. Stay where you are for a minute. This is what I didn't do before, you see. I didn't get it in the hole. Right, it's in the hole now.
That's it.
Right, so this time we've made a bit of a better job of it. So, although I have got still a little bit running down my arm, I'm going to take my arm away now, alright? Just lift it up a bit, Gal, the bottle.
That's it, yeah.
Right, just stay there. And as you can see, because what might happen here, we might get to a fill limit because the car's tilted up. You know, we might not get the whole of the 2 litres in because the car's tipped up, so we might have to withdraw before, if I start seeing it running out, yeah?
Yeah.
There we go. I'm sure you got a better shot of that now, folks. As I say, we've still got the car up in the air, so there's a good chance that we could fill up and start dribbling out of here, in which case we'll have to put the remainder in when the car's on the ground. Hold it, stop. Gently. Hold on, do that one more time. Careful, slowly. I think you pushed too hard and it forced the load out. Stop. It's coming out now. Right, so we can't get it all in, folks. Go on in. Pull it back. Bend it over. Keep going. That's it. Right, so we're at the stage now where we can't get any more in. So we're going to have to, again, top that fluid up, hopefully from the bonnet area, when the car's on the ground. So how much is left in that bottle, Gal?
There's about a quarter in there.
So we got about a quarter of a bottle left. There's probably about 250 millilitres still to go in. So that's what we're going to do afterwards. Fill up once the car's actually on the ground. Right, everything's back together. The car's back on the ground. We have topped up the fluids in the gearbox until they started spilling out of the actual fill holes. We didn't quite get the 2 litres in the gearbox like it said in the manual, but as I say, while the car's on the ground, the actual fluid started pouring out, and exactly the same with the IRD unit. All fluids have been filled up. To fill the water up, basically all we've done was undo the filler cap there on the expansion bottle, and on the top of the top radiator hose there is a bleed screw. We basically took that out and filled up the water until the water started dribbling out of the fill hole. Put the little cap back in that, and then just filled this up to its level. So basically everything should be in place. We actually fitted our extra bracket, what I was telling you about, and we actually fitted 2 new belts on as well down there, which you can't see. That was pretty simple to do. Everything's connected, as you can see. There's the brand new IRD unit in place. So we're now going to start the car up and just check for water leaks and oil leaks, and then we're going to give it a test drive. You've seen basically in real time, apart from doing up bolts and undoing bolts, but in total I suppose it's taken us about 3 hours today to finish this job, to get to the stage where we are now ready to start the car. So I hope that gives you some sort of indication on our way which we've done it. It may not be the proper way to do it, it may not be the way that it's said in the manual, but you've seen how we've done it, and it should give you definitely some idea whether you want to tackle this sort of job on your own in the future. Right, we've just started her up. We're just checking all the hoses, make sure there's no water leaks anywhere. Everything seems to be running pretty smooth at the moment. Water temperature's getting hot because we've topped the water up. The belts are nice and quiet. So we're just going to take her for a little test drive for the first time as a two-wheel drive Freelander. Right, this is our first go of our two-wheel drive Freelander. Right, we're only driving now on our front two wheels, which shouldn't feel any different. Just pulling out of the drive. Now don't forget, when I used to reverse out of this drive, as it was a four-wheel drive, it was very tight when reversing. So I'll see what happens now. Oh, I've got to go forward. There's no tightness whatsoever. So, being a two-wheel drive has totally transformed the steering on this vehicle. That's when it used to sort of come to a halt, when it was like this. But now, let's go forward. Right, IRD unit is doing its job. This vehicle is now a two-wheel drive Freelander. I'm just taking it easy first, making sure everything's up to temperature. And there's no knocks or bumps or anything at the moment, so I'm quite happy with this at the moment. Definitely a great improvement over the parking and reversing at slow speed. Right, isn't it? It appears to be. I will say that with new gearbox oil in, the gearbox feels a lot slicker, because I don't know whether it's a common problem on these Freelanders, but the problem I was getting with this was that getting it into reverse seemed to be a problem. But that's why I bought a new clutch, slave and master cylinder, and that's why I also fitted that new slave cylinder bracket as well. But maybe the oil is actually going to make some improvements as well. There we go, ladies and gentlemen. I hope this has been of some interest to you, those of you with a 1.8 petrol engine, K-series engine Freelander. This one's now been converted to a two-wheel drive using the method we've done anyway. Whether it's right or wrong, I'm not too sure. But I hope you enjoyed the videos. Thanks very much indeed for watching.